Chapter 1021, The Shattered Hearts. An inconceivable look flashed across Han Qingwu's eyes, but she firmly shook her head and said, I really haven't seen this object, nor do I know what you're talking about. Is that so? Tang Xiu slowly opened the oval container as a milky white light was released and a violet fairy flapped her thin wings, running out of the vessel with a cheer. Little Wu Wu finally comes out again. You're a bad guy. Little Wu Wu doesn't want to stay in that small world anymore. Tang Xiu didn't even spare a glance at the violet fairy. His eyes looked like they were able to see through people's minds as they locked on Han Qingwu's face, scrutinizing every minute of her expression. He keenly captured the moment when Han Qingwu's pupils shrunk as the violet fairy rushed out of the container. He could also see that her body was slightly trembling. Sure enough, eyes filled with a frosty light, Tang Xiu's figure flickered and instantly appeared in front of the violet fairy. He caught her lightning fast and his vision trained back at Han Qingwu. You said you've never seen this immortal tool from the plant world, so you've never seen this little thing either, haven't you? Violet Fairy, the last bloodline of the Violet Fairy race in the immortal world with such a lofty status as the princess of the Violet Fairy clan. Han Qingwu's fingers subconsciously pinched the corner of her clothes. The more her eyes fixedly stared at the Violet Fairy, the more intense the palpitation quaking her heart became. The Violet Fairy struggled in pain due to the huge force of Tang Xiu's grasp. She looked at Han Qingwu and immediately looked excited after seeing her face, screaming joyfully, Master. Little Wu Wu really misses you. Quickly save Little Wu Wu, Master. Han Qingwu's shivering heart became more intense as she watched Tang Xiu exert increasingly more strength to his fingers. She hurriedly called out, Don't hurt her, Tang Xiu. You haven't answered my question yet. Tang Xiu sneered. Besides, didn't you say you have never seen her? Han Qingwu fell into silence. What and how to answer? Say I haven't seen her? Tang Xiu kept exerting more strength on his fingers. Amid the panic screams of the Violet Fairy, he slowly said, It's truly pitiful, isn't it? To think that the last bloodline of Violet Fairy clan would be abandoned by her master, being left alone and forsaken in this world. But I think that death would indeed be her salvation and relief. At least she doesn't need to endure pain and loneliness in her life yet again. Maybe she can even see her relatives after passing through the cycle of reincarnation. No. I recall that all her relatives should have had their bodies and souls shattered, no? Then I'll help her till the end. I'd better destroy every lasting mark of her soul and let her disappear from the world for eternity. At this time, only then did Han Qingwu's countenance look tragic. Pain flitted across her eyes as she clenched her fists and nails deeply pierced her palms. Her blood bleeding out as she tried to stand firm despite her swaying figure. She shook her head and said, Don't hurt her, Tang Xiu. I'll tell you everything. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Tang Xiu loosened his fingers and shouted fiercely, Then tell me, why did you do it? White teeth biting her red lips, Han Qingwu shot a deep glance at the Violet Fairy caught by Tang Xiu. She shut her eyes while despair and desperation were all over her face. Time ticked by and a minute and a second passed by. After 10 minutes, only then did she open her eyes again. But her eyes now looked dead and her voice was somewhat hoarse as she uttered the words, Master's commandment is hard to break. Frosty light gleamed in Tang Xiu's eyes and he coldly snorted. Humph. Zhu Wushou truly has a good disciple, doesn't he? Scheming for thousands of years, disregarding and ruining the happiness of his innocent eldest disciple just so she committed suicide to kill me. Humph. Still, one thing is unclear. Just when did the shade demon Zhu Wushou see me as an enemy? Why you know my master is the shade demon Zhu Wushou? Han Qingwu muttered with disbelief on her face. How is this possible? What's done by night will appear by day. Tang Xiu sneered yet again. You haven't answered my question yet. Why did Shade Demon Zhu Wushou scheme against me and want my life? My life is his, and I've given it back to him in the immortal world. Han Qinggu bitterly said, I entered the reincarnation cycle and transmigrated to Earth, freeing myself from the bond between master and disciple with him, no longer bound by the threat of the curse of time he cast on me. That's why I can tell you about it, but I hope you promise to fulfill my request after that. Then, pray tell, replied Tang Xiu frostily with surging killing intent in his heart. Han Qinggu calmly walked to Tang Xiu's front, disregarding his killing intent. She opened Tang Xiu's fingers one by one, took the violet fairy and gloomily said, Promise me first that you'll fulfill any request I ask from you. Humph. You know me, why insist on a promise, hummed Tang Xiu. I do understand you, Tang Xiu, so that's why I want your word, said Han Qinggu. You can rest assured that I won't request anything that will harm any of your interests, nor will I let you make a difficult decision. It's even an absolutely easy promise for the current you to fulfill. I give you my word, replied Tang Xiu. While staring at Tang Xiu deeply, Han Qinggu unhurriedly said, As a member of Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, you should be very clear about the meaning of this line. White Egret and unscathed of Vermilion Bird Holy Sect slaughtered myriads of races and the perfected golden immortal pathmarker, shouldn't you? White Egret and unscathed slaughtered myriads of races. Tang Xiu trembled, countless turbulence rippling in his heart. White Egret and unscathed were his mother's and father's names in the immortal world. White Egret was the daughter of the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect's sovereign, whereas unscathed was just a common disciple, and they were in love with each other. However, their love led to the opposition of countless people even though the acting sovereign, Tang Xiu's grandfather, was very satisfied with unscathed. He treated and fostered him like his own biological son until the couple eventually stepped into the perfected golden immortal stage. As for the pathmarker Jing Dao, when White Egret and unscathed left the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect, they traversed the immortal world, demon realm and monster realm for 3,000 years unhinderedly, where they slaughtered countless of their enemies and finally advanced to the perfected golden immortal stage after killing Pathmarker. Eyes fixedly staring at Han Qinggu, Tang Xiu said with a deep voice, Among those people killed by my parents, was there any of the Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's relatives? It was far more than relatives. His parents, brothers, sisters, and all the friends he had when he was young. All of them died in the hands of your parents, answered Han Qinggu gloomily. Harboring this blood enmity for a very long time, Zhu Wushou kept advancing in cultivation level and got stronger and stronger. In order to control time for the purpose of reviving his loved ones from the perpetual river of time, he then chose the Tao of space-time. However, your parents always stayed at the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect ever since they broke through into the perfected golden immortal stage. They rarely went out of the sect, and even though they did leave occasionally, they quickly returned. Hence, Zhu Wushou kept waiting for many years and didn't give up his revenge. But he gradually began to transfer his hatred to the loved ones of White Egret and unscathed. You have been fortunate since you had two perfected golden immortal experts protecting you in secret. Unless you encountered life and death crises, they always hid in the dark while protecting you as you slowly grew up. However, you had many clansmen, many of whom met their demise or disappeared without a trace under Zhu Wushou's schemes. Your Vermilion Bird Holy Sect also noticed it and conducted the investigation for a very long time, but found no clue and just let it go. As you grew stronger and stronger and then advanced to the perfected golden immortal stage, the two experts who always protected you returned to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect. And that was about the time when Zhu Wushou put me as a chess piece in his machination. Unfortunately for him, and despite his countless divinations and calculations, your aptitude and talent in cultivation was so heaven-defying that you broke through into the supremacy stage a step ahead of him. All his plans were all for naught. Only then did he perceive the dissatisfaction your close friends had towards you behind your back. Tang Xiu's countenance went grim and he coldly said, So to say, you then came onto the stage and waited until I faced my tribulation and ambushed me back then? A painful look flashed across Han Qingwu's eyes, then she easily concealed it. That's right, the Shade Demon Zhu Wushou vowed that as long as we collaborated to kill you, then he would release me from the curse of time he cast on me, as well as freeing all my family members. Whereas he promised Great Emperor Dan Qing and Zither Demon Jiuyao to borrow his time-accelerated Chrono Sanctuary, to cultivate inside for 1,000 years. All the puzzles, all the thick fog that had long been shrouding Tang Xiu's heart had now been blown away by Han Qingwu's story. And yet, the betrayal of his former close friends and his true love left only a shattered heart with heart-rendering pain and a bleeding soul. The love that was misplaced, and the kindness that was undeserved. Ultimately, everything was just a machination against him, a plot to kill him. Had it not been for Han Qingwu poisoning him in advance, it would have been very unlikely that he'd lose his life even though Emperor Dan Qing and Zither Demon Jiuyao joined hands to kill him. Bluntly put, it was Han Qingwu in front of him now who left the gravest and deepest injury. And oh, she should be Shui Qingcheng. Why didn't you hide then? Shouted Tang Xiu, a frosty chill filling his eyes. Han Qingwu loosened the violet purple and let her fly to her shoulder. Then, she answered with a bitter face, I owed my master a debt I've paid off. But I haven't paid off the debt I owe you. You should be very clear of my, Han Shui Qingcheng's personality. Why bother asking? You aren't afraid that I'll kill you, yelled Tang Xiu angrily. Are you not afraid that I'll erase your soul into nothingness and bar you from reincarnation for eternity? A tender look filled Han Qingwu's eyes as a gentle smile appeared on her face. She shook her head and said, I'm not afraid at all. You still remember the request I just told you? The divine sword suddenly appeared in Tang Xiu's hand out of thin air and pointed to the sky as he sneered. You want me to spare your life? Dream on. No, Han Qingwu shook her head and said, my request is for you to kill me. What? Tang Xiu incredulously stared at Han Qingwu. She had her wish fulfilled, to be reincarnated, reborn, and gain a new life. Reaching the perfected golden immortal stage was not impossible for her given her former aptitude and abilities. It was even likely that she could advance into the supremacy stage, given time. And yet, her request turned out to be for him to kill her? Suddenly, Tang Xiu recalled something at this moment and asked with a heavy voice, back when you plotted against me with the likes of Emperor Dan Qing and Zither Demon Jiuyao, why did they kill you? After all, you were the Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's disciple and you'd completed the mission he gave you. Does it still have any meanings for you to ask about it now? Asked Han Qingwu back faintly. Chapter 1022, Severing Past Life. Pointing to his heart, Tang Xiu yelled with a heavy voice, no longer do I want to harbor the last question in here. Spit it out. Just how did you die? How did you have the opportunity to leave your true soul behind after you died and enter the cycle of reincarnation to be reborn? Han Qingwu just shook her head without answering Tang Xiu's question. She slowly shut her eyes and gently opened her hands as the last scene in the immortal world emerged in her mind. A woman dressed in red from head to toe as if the song of blood had been cast on her. She hugged the dead body of her true love she killed by her own hands, before committing suicide and finally dying. At that moment in time, her true soul had yet to dissipate. Due to her chrono cultivation art, she found that Tang Xiu's true soul hadn't yet been swallowed by the perpetual river of time, but rather tore open the void amid the heavenly tribulation and was about to enter the chaos of nothingness. Right at that moment, she cast a forbidden art to follow the last wisp of Tang Xiu's true soul and entered the cycle of reincarnation of this plane. Do it. At this moment, Han Qingwu looked oddly calm as her table tennis ball-sized golden core flew out of her body and floated in front of her eyebrows. Tang Xiu angrily glared at Han Qingwu. Seeing her wholeheartedly ready to die face made the tempestuous killing intent inside him to rage crazily. The hand that grasped the sword slightly trembled, and his already bleeding heart felt more and more painful. Being reincarnated, reborn, and gaining a new life looked like it was a sweet dream of grandeur that was so picturesque and beautiful. But now, it felt like nothing but a struggle to crawl out of the ninth purgatory of hell. Kill. Kill, kill. Kill, kill, kill. The deepest recess of Tang Xiu's heart kept roaring. But he felt the divine sword in his hand become heavy to the extreme. He kept struggling and yet kept hesitating, only to find himself unable to finish everything with his hand. That's right. He just couldn't do it, regardless of having ascertained the truth of the matter, despite the fact that Shui Qingqing was the one who made him drink the poison and stabbed his heart. To his sorrow, he found himself drowning in hatred, yet he just couldn't reap the soul of the one he once loved with all his heart with his divine sword. Roar. A roar the likes of a beast came out of Tang Xiu's throat. He looked like the god of killing as he finally brandished his sword to tear Han Qingwu's facial muscle, leaving a bleeding wound on it. The stunning beauty of a woman was finally ruined in but a fleeting moment. It was but one sword that severed all the last nostalgia between Tang Xiu and Shui Qingqing. One slash to sever the connection to their past lives, turning it into clouds and rain. He couldn't kill her, but nothing could prevent him from ruining the face that had been haunting his dreams. All that was left was just a melancholic desolation and sorrow. All the murderous intent he had toward her had now completely dissipated, replaced by loneliness and vicissitudes of life that took over its place deep in his soul. He slowly turned around and didn't even glance at Han Qingwu's current face. After he walked a few steps away from her, he spoke with a hoarse voice with his back facing her. The sun shined brightly upon the great Tao, yet only the lone bridge remains. From now henceforth, nothing remains between you and me. Han Qingwu's sparkling eyes were filled with distressing feelings, yet contained deep love as they followed Tang Xiu's back. A bright smile suddenly appeared on her face while blood flowed out from the scary wound on her face. Even so, she didn't lift her hand to wipe it off. Had it been before back when they were in the immortal world, perhaps she would take the initiative to lift that sword to end her life from this mortal coil even if Tang Xiu didn't kill her. But now, she didn't do so, for the memories of her past life had now blended with her current life. Her personality had gone through a little change. She knew that nothing remained between them, but she was still able to see him, even if she could only do so from the far corner, even if she must hide in a different spacetime. But she could still look at him from far away. When he needed something, then she'd move and act for him. When he needed nothing, then she'd just gaze at him. At this moment in time, Han Qingwu had already understood what her future life would be like. She existed only for him. Under the odd gaze of the two staff outside the door, Tang Xiu listlessly left the ice skating rink. He didn't go back to campus, nor did he return to the Blue Star Villa complex. He didn't even recall his plan to head to the Hilton Hotel to find Chen Zhizhong. He just strolled on the bustling streets of Shanghai as if he was in a trance, walking everywhere as his feet take him to without aim, just drifting on with no destination. The day bled into the night as Tang Xiu came to his senses from his dazed state. He found himself standing at the entrance of the Everlasting Feast Hall's branch in Shanghai. 8 strong men stood around him, forming a circle with him firmly in the middle, preventing anyone from disturbing him. The worried-looking, red-dressed Qi Nan was standing and looking at him firmly. Dismiss. Tang Xiu inhaled a deep breath as his primal chaos force surged in his meridians. He just unshackled his whole being from his muddled state. The reckoning of the grievance had shaken off the shackle of a mental demon in his psyche. He felt strange as the disappearance of the mental demon unexpectedly improved his soul and perfected the first layer of his heavenly art of cosmic genesis, the star's tyrannical body, without him realizing it. It's enough to kill a nascent soul stage cultivator. He began walking and stepped into the front door of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Under the odd gazes of numerous pairs of eyes, he went straight to the manager's office on the 2nd floor. Boss. Qi Nan, who kept following him, seemed she wanted to speak. But she hesitated, and the worry in her eyes had yet to dissipate. Tang Xiu just shook his head and sat on the soft leather sofa. He took out a cigarette and lit it up. After taking in and out a few puffs, only then did he slowly speak, "Don't worry. I'm fine." Nan secretly relaxed upon hearing it, asking, "I just came from Jingmen Island this afternoon, boss. I've already handed over the business management here to some others. Are there any other instructions you'd like me to carry out?" "Get me something to eat. And accompany me to drink," said Tang Xiu. "I'll have it arranged right away, boss." Nan nodded. As Nan left the office, Tang Xiu no longer thought about Han Qingwu. The purpose of his return to Shanghai this time had been achieved, and he had already figured out the truth of this matter and solved it. What had happened in the past and the matter with Shui Qingcheng, he no longer wanted all those to bother him ever again. Everything related to Shui Qingcheng was over, leaving only the enmity with Emperor Dan Qing, Zither Demon Jiuyao, and some others. As for the Shade Demon Zhu Wushou, he must die. That second issue still remains. As Tang Xiu recalled the issue with Shanghai University, he suddenly got a faint headache. He didn't kill Han Qingwu, and she probably worked as a teacher at Shanghai University, and could be the teacher in charge of his class as well. Hey, forget it. I'll just suspend my studies. Straightly dropping out of school was not Tang Xiu's intention, since it was the long-cherished wish of his mother, to see him getting a university diploma. He just couldn't let her down on that. After he finished smoking the cigarette, Nan returned and respectfully said as she stopped in front of Tang Xiu, "Boss, I already ordered some people. The meal will soon be served. But there's something I want to report to you before you dine." "What is it?" asked Tang Xiu. "Kong Xia looked for you a few days ago. She couldn't contact you before, so she gave a call," said Nan. "I didn't ask her about the issue, but it seems very urgent judging from her voice at the time." Kong Xia? Only then did Tang Xiu remember that he hadn't contacted Kong Xia for a long time. But he knew that she must be very busy managing the magnificent Tang Corporation's affairs in the last few months, especially dealing with the issues of the new metro of Star City insider purchase. That was likely the reason why she didn't take the initiative to call him. Although it was also possible that she didn't call him since he often went to places with no phone signal. Taking out his cell phone, Tang Xiu dialed Kong Xia's phone number. Soon after, her voice came out of the phone. "Is it you, Tang Xiu?"
"Yeah.
"I just returned to China and am in Shanghai," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "I'll leave for Shanghai now." "I need to see you," said Kong Xia. "I heard from Nan that you've been looking for me these days and you seem very anxious." "What happened?" asked Tang Xiu. "It's Andy. She got some problems with her body," answered Kong Xia. "I want you to take a look at her if you have nothing urgent to do." Tang Xiu's face slightly changed and he asked with a deep voice, "What happened to her?" "It seems like she got a problem in her cultivation, like qi deviation or something," explained Kong Xia bitterly. "She has been in a coma in recent days, so I sent her to the hospital for examination. But the experts there can't figure out what happened to her, nor can they tell about her condition. Wait for me in Star City." "I'll be back there right away," replied Tang Xiu in a deep voice. After hanging up, he called Chen Zhizhong and told him to head to the airport and wait. He refused to stay in the Everlasting Feast Hall for dinner, and Nan sent him back to the Blue Star Villa complex, as he met his mother, Su Lingyun there. "Mom, I need to go back to Star City immediately. Someone is seriously injured there, so I need to rush back to treat her." "Are you going to stay in Shanghai for some time or go back to Star City with me?" asked Tang Xiu. "Who's injured, son?" "Do I know the person?" asked Su Lingyun hurriedly. "You know her." "It's Andy," answered Tang Xiu. "That Andy girl? What happened to her?" asked Su Lingyun quickly. "Then let's hurry up and go back to Star City. I came to Shanghai to find you, but since you're going back to Star City, it doesn't make sense for me to stay here. Everything else is not important. Andy's injury is the most urgent thing now." Tang Xiu heeded and then called Ouyang Lulu, saying that he needed her private jet to send him and the rest to Star City directly. Just as they exited the Star City airport, the driver arranged by Qin Jizhong in advance was already waiting with several cars outside. "May I ask where are you going, master?" asked Qin Jizhong. "I'm heading back to Southgate Town." "You can go home with your men first," answered Tang Xiu. "Andy is injured and she needs me to treat her. I'll find you again after stabilizing her condition." "Then I'm going with you, master," said Qin Jizhong quickly. "Besides, I have medicinal herbs business, so I can immediately provide you the herbs you need during the treatment." Tang Xiu gave it a thought before refusing his request. He didn't mind to have Qin Jizhong following him if Su Lingyun was not around. However, Qin Jizhong was of the same age as his mother. His mother would definitely feel awkward and uncomfortable when she heard Qin Jizhong addressing him as master. "Just go home first and wait for me. I'll call you later when I need your assistance." "As you wish, master." Qin Jizhong nodded. In the King Villa of Southgate Town, Kong Xia had brought Andy over and was now worried sick as she paced back and forth at the entrance of the villa courtyard, glancing at the Southgate Town complex's gate every few seconds. Andy suddenly had a chi deviation when cultivating. It was something that made her very worried. She regarded Andy as her closest relative beside Tang Xiu, and she didn't want any mishaps to happen to her, nor did she want to see any accidents that she couldn't accept. Chapter 1023, Overdosed. When Tang Xiu hurriedly arrived at Southgate Town, he saw a worried-looking Kong Xia. He couldn't spare time to comfort her and just strode past her to see the unconscious Andy in the guest room. "Don't let anyone disturb me." After issuing this order, he grabbed Andy's wrist and checked her pulse, only to find out that she had overdosed on medicinal pills. Her body that was unable to withstand the potent energy from the pills was eventually out of control. Her pulse now was very chaotic, while her true essence was in utter disorder. If she didn't get timely treatment to unclog the energy flow, even if the predicament wouldn't kill her, the only choice was to scatter her cultivation for her to fully recover. "That she's so foolish and just messing around, isn't she?" Tang Xiu smiled wryly and loosened Andy's pulse and wrist. He shook his head, sighed inwardly, and then lifted her from the bed. After making her sit cross-legged, he began to manipulate and adjust the chaotic true essence in her meridians. Luckily, her cultivation was still weak at the mid-stage of foundation establishment, otherwise, Tang Xiu would have been really at a loss as to how to help her recuperate and adjust her physical condition. Time fleeted by. In the last 6 hours, Tang Xiu spent a lot of energy to help Andy adjust her condition. After helping her lie down, he then left the room. "How is she?" Kong Xia, who kept waiting outside the room, hurriedly asked. "Her condition has stabilized." Tang Xiu nodded. "She'll be fine. And it won't be a problem after she wakes up and recuperates." It wasn't because of chi deviation though. She took pills that are way too potent for her and got overdosed. Such pills are not something she can bear with her current cultivation level, thus causing this problem. She got overdosed? Kong Xia's restlessness finally dissipated, yet she looked speechless and wore a strange expression after hearing Tang Xiu's explanation. Tang Xiu let out a smile and reached over her shoulder. "You got so rich recently, didn't you? Well, don't burn your money on pills even if you got more money. She's quite lucky this time and no danger to her life, but if she takes another high-grade pill, her body could explode from the potent energy." Kong Xia smilingly said, "We got quite a fortune recently, indeed. Haven't you checked your account balance?" "Got too many things to tackle abroad recently, so I really haven't checked my account." Tang Xiu looked dull, before shaking his head and saying, "Anyways, what exactly happened? Where did we get so much money from?" With an expression of being at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh, Kong Xia said, "I know money is nothing but a number to you. If anything, the products of our magnificent Tang Corporation are booming and the supply never meets the demand. But I allocated all the income from the products into the company headquarter project in Shanghai. But don't forget about the insider purchase of the new city. The real estate's price of the new metro is about their odd times higher than its previous opening price, and half of them have been sold already as of now. I've asked about the new metro's real estate issue back when it was at the early stage, though I no longer follow its later stage development. How much was the capital invested by our company in the early stage? Asked Tang Xiu curiously. Kong Xia stretched out a finger and then extended two more. After laughing, she asked, "Guess how many?" 12 billion yuan? Tang Xiu confirmed in amazement. Smart. No wonder you're really the man I chose, huh? Kong Xia praised while giving him a thumbs up. That's right. The total capital we invested to purchase the real estate in the previous phase was 12 billion yuan. Be it the residential or commercial establishments, the total market value has reached about 40 billion yuan. Most of the residential estates have been sold out for a total of 18.5 billion yuan, and I've transferred 15 billion into your private account. 3 billion went into the magnificent Tang Corporation's public account, and the remaining 500 million yuan are dividends. It seems that the real estate business is indeed very lucrative. Tang Xiu sighed. It's no surprise that most of the richest people in the country consisted mostly of real estate developers in the past. Anyways, what about the current progress of the new metro? The first phase of the development project has been finalized and we're currently finishing some miscellaneous works, answered Kong Xia. Most of the works for the second phase have been done and it's expected to be fully finished by early next year. The third and fourth phases of the project have already started and, once the second phase has been fully finalized, it's possible to carry out the third and fourth phases at the same time. The documents issued by the government also pointed out that we're fully authorized to develop the new metro while the government will provide assistance. Long Hanwen has been wanting to meet you recently, but he couldn't contact you, unfortunately. Hence, he could only give up for the time being. What did he want? Asked Tang Xiu. It's about architectural complex design. Did you forget you were the one who designed it? Kong Xia forced a smile and said, that's the main reason why the sales are so good and the very cause why rich celebrities all over the country ran over to buy these real estates. The architectural design and the buildings in the new city are highly acclaimed and the metro is said to be a dream city. But you're always the so busy man and only design the first and second phase of the project. You haven't even mentioned the third and fourth phases until now. Long Hanwen is not the only one worrying about it, even I'm a bit restless here. Did the government really give the full authority to us? Tang Xiu frowned and asked, are they really unwilling to be involved, like, at all? They must be involved, of course, but things like this are always very complicated. But Long Hanwen and the various parties are dealing with the government, so our company is much more relaxed, said Kong Xia. I see. Tang Xiu nodded and asked again, how large is the area of the new city occupied by the first 4 phases of the construction project? About 1/5, answered Kong Xia. Cough, cough. Being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh, Tang Xiu looked at Kong Xiu and said, the first 4 phases of the project only occupied 1/5 of the entire new city? Doesn't it mean I still have to design tons of architectural blueprints? You also know capable men must do most of the work, no? Kong Xiu grinned and said, besides, it's a joint venture and we can get most of the profits with the cheapest means, so work hard to increase our fortune, got it? Tang Xiu couldn't help but shake his head helplessly. Luckily, the complete architectural design didn't need to be drawn all at once. He could do the design for the next 2 phases of the project and it would be enough to tackle the situation, otherwise, he would rather put all the things at hand for a while and just devote himself into drawing the architectural designs. Speaking about it, he may have to spend some time, but the cost of drawing building cells and blocks were not that much either. After all, he had countless buildings in the immortal world as a reference, and drawing the designs was very easy since he could just plagiarize the suitable buildings for the purpose. At the corner of the corridor, Su Lingyun appeared in an apron. As she saw Tang Xiu and Kong Xia conversing and looking very intimate, she suddenly let out a smile and asked, "How about Andy's treatment, Xiu?" Tang Xiu loosened Kong Xia and approached her, saying, "She'll be fine, Mom. She'll recover after she wakes up and recuperates for a few days. Also, isn't there a housekeeper to help you at home, Mom? Why are you cooking?" "Why shouldn't I cook personally since my son is at home?" asked Su Lingyun back smilingly. "I asked Xiaxia this afternoon and she hasn't had any meals for 2 days. Perhaps she'll have the appetite now that Andy is going to be fine, so Xiaxia must be starving now, no?" Xiaxia? Tang Xiu stared at Kong Xia with an odd gaze. When did they get so close and what exactly does Mom mean by saying so? The person in question just squinted at Tang Xiu and blushed. She quickly walked to Su Lingyun, swiftly held her hand, and said with a smile, "I'm not that hungry, Auntie." Su Lingyun smilingly said, "Why are you that shy, child? You'll be the daughter-in-law of the Tang family sooner or later, to begin with, so why can't you eat more? Besides, I can only count on you to give me a healthy and chubby grandson earlier." Guh. Tang Xiu was utterly dumbfounded, for he didn't think that his mother had known all along about the state of the relationship between him and Kong Xia. To think that she was expecting to have a healthy and chubby grandson from Kong Xia. Wasn't that already making it clear that Mu Weining was the woman he'd properly marry in the future? Did she really approve of him having many women at the same time? He really couldn't figure out what his mother was thinking at all. After secretly shaking his head, he smiled and said, "Well, it seems that Andy needs some time to wake up, so let's eat first. I was quite busy this afternoon, so I'm a bit starving now. Do you cook a delicious meal, Mom?" "No worries, kid. Mom has prepared everything you love to eat," replied Su Lingyun smilingly. During dinner, when Su Lingyun wasn't paying attention, Tang Xiu quietly whispered to Kong Xia next to him, "Hey, since when did you get so close to my mom? It seems she has been treating you as the Tang family's daughter-in-law already." Kong Xia's mouth curved and she whispered back smilingly, "Auntie often comes to the company in recent months and brings me meals, you know. We occasionally invite each other and go shopping together too." What's the catch? Tang Xiu was confused. "Well, it was because of the company dinner for executives 6 months ago, so we kinda chose your family's restaurant for the party. After having some drinks, I was preparing to go home and rest, but then bumped into your mom when she was moving some things. She got strained and I hurriedly carried her to a nearby Chinese medicine clinic. The old doctor then treated Auntie and we just hit it off and meet more often since." "I see." Tang Xiu quickly understood and smilingly said, "Well, I never thought that you'd make such a smart move to fawn upon your future mother-in-law. Mom will definitely love you so much even if you can't get the official status of the Tang family's daughter-in-law in the future, no? Bah. Go. Go." Out of shyness, Kong Xia hurriedly flung her face to the side to avoid being teased by Tang Xiu. She was well aware that she wouldn't be the Tang family's daughter-in-law nominally. Countless times had she reminded herself that she didn't need such status publicly and it was enough for her as long as Tang Xiu really had her in his heart. Hence, although she felt slightly at a loss upon hearing such words from Tang Xiu, she was able to quickly adjust her mood. Suddenly, Kong Xia turned back and whispered, "What's with those 5 little guys, though? They are kinda odd, like some robots or something. So very disciplined and yet old-fashioned at the same time. I thought they were like other average children, not like some old geezers." Chapter 1024, The Tang Sex Tokens. They are of the best cultivation geniuses among the children army and also much more mature than their peers. Tang Xiu sighed. It's like the saying from the ancient times that the children of the poor are growing up earlier. They lost their family since they were very young. Hard and rough life tempered them as it's the only way to make a living. So to say, they are all the street children you adopted before? Kang Xia was shocked. But I can sense that all 5 of them have reached the foundation establishment stage? How old are they? How can they advance to foundation establishment stage? Especially that Tang 28. He's at the mid-stage foundation establishment. They are naturally very talented in cultivation for being able to stand out among the tens of thousands of children soldiers, explained Tang Shou. With a steady supply of cultivation resources, it's still possible to advance to the foundation establishment stage. You're getting more and more amazing, Tang Shou. Kang Xia sighed in admiration. The situation forced me to do so, and I must do my best to train more powerful experts under me. Tang Shou shook his head. The dangers we will face in the future are far beyond your imagination, and only by constantly growing more powerful and expanding our forces will we be able to seize more chances to survive. Also, Kang Xia, I know you've been managing the magnificent Tang Corporation all this while, but I'd like you to take more time to cultivate, as much as possible. Only by becoming stronger will you able to protect the people you want to protect in the future. Definitely. I'll do my best as well. Kang Xia nodded. After dinner, Tang Shou accompanied his mother and Kang Xia and chatted with them for a while. Then, he took Tang 28 and left Southgate Town to visit Chen Zhizhong's residence. Inside the classical-styled villa, Chen Zhizhong was sitting cross-legged and quietly absorbing the world's spiritual energy. He was a bit too old when he began his journey on the cultivation path, thus the reason why his cultivation progress was slow despite having many cultivation resources. He was only able to reach the late stage of the foundation establishment at this point. Master. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and saw Tang Shou, who stood quietly in front of him. He immediately floated up and respectfully bowed. Your progress is indeed much slower compared to those cultivation geniuses. Tang Shou nodded and said, You're even slightly worse than the most talented children from the orphans I've adopted. Disciple is dull and has you disappointed, said Chen Zhizhong, ashamed. Not really. Aptitude and age are equally important. Tang Shou shook his head. Besides, I only had a few resources back then, so I couldn't help you much before. But now is different since I have so many precious herbs I've obtained in the past year. I can concoct some precious herbs to help solve the problems with your aptitude. However, I still lack spiritual herbs. I need you to find them for me. Chen Zhizhong looked blank and immediately looked joyful and enthusiastic. What kind of medicinal ingredients do you need, Master? Dragon bone herb, said Tang Shou. Dragon bone herb? I've never heard this name, Master. Chen Zhizhong frowned and said, What does it look like? Like the shape and its obvious characteristic? The dragon bone herb has 9 buds and looks like willow soft shoot, explained Tang Shou. There are white dots on it, a bit like a 5-star pattern. It's also recorded on the Compendium of Materia Medica with 1 line, but nonetheless explains its complete functions. You have herbs business and your company has many herbs as well as a wide range of channels. You can take your time to find this dragon bone herb. I'll concoct the marrow purifying pill for you. Your physique will be remolded and reborn once you take it. Rest assured, Master. As long as there's this dragon bone herb in our country, I'll definitely find it as soon as possible no matter the price, said Chen Zhizhong excitedly. Anyways, do you live here by yourself? I just noticed when I came here, asked Tang Shou.
Yeah.
My son has been staying in the capital to develop himself and I don't have the intention to let him take over the company for the time being, said Chen Zhizhong. Whereas my parents, they don't want to live in Star City since they are used to the life in their hometown, so my wife stays there to take care of them and only comes back occasionally. If so, then I'll refine something for you here while directing your cultivation. Tang Shou nodded. Then I'll assign some people to arrange a room for you right away, master, said Chen Zhizhong immediately. No need. Tang Xiu shook his head and said, just tell your men to clean up the garage. Also, I need a few days for the refining process, so tell your bodyguards not to disturb me. I'll tell them immediately. Also, please notify me at once should there be anything you need, master, replied Chen Zhizhong immediately. All right. Tang Xiu nodded. In the next few days, Tang Xiu accompanied his mother during the day and occasionally visited his company and secretly came to Chen Zhizhong's place at night. The tools Tang Xiu wanted to refine were identity tokens. Every refined token had a protective function that was similar to protective amulets. However, this token would only activate once its owner was in danger and was only one-time use before it lost its protective effect. In a few days, Tang Xiu had refined 10,000 tokens and christened them as Tang Sect's token as identity tokens for all juniors, under the Tang Sect. At the same time, he also paid attention to the Nine Dragons Island situation. The ships appearing in the nearby waters around the ninth deserted island kept increasing in number, and the forces of various parties were getting more active as well. Some of them were hostile forces and thus led to some clashes. Although the scale of the fight was small, dozens of people had forever fallen into the vast sea. A few days later, Tang Xiu bade farewell to his mother and left for Changbai Mountain with Chen Zhizhong. The Changbai Mountain range was the source of origin of the Yalu, Songhua, and Tumen rivers. The region boasted a total area of 1964 square kilometers with 758 square meters at the core. The highest peak of Changbai Mountain Range, the Gyeongjun Peak, was within the border of North Korea with an altitude of 2,749 meters, whereas the highest peak in China that Tang Xiu was now heading to was the Northeast Peak, with an altitude of 2,691 meters. Prior to coming here, Tang Xiu believed that the data recorded in the book was correct while he also had some knowledge about the Changbai Mountain range through the map. But after he personally entered the place, he realized that it was all off the mark since the Changbai Mountain range was far more complex and very steep. Many areas even had naturally formed arrays. This place is interesting. As he came halfway up the main mountain peak, a smile hung on his handsome face. He observed the array in front of him and determined that such a huge geomancy array wouldn't be so easily formed naturally, without the involvement of some people's hands. After studying it, he then fully comprehended the array. Is there any problem here, master? With Tang Xiu's instructions in the last few days, Chen Zhizhong had made great progress in his cultivation as well as his state of mind. Although his cultivation was still at the early stage of the foundation establishment, there were signs of breakthrough to the mid-stage. As he saw the smile on his master's face, he hurriedly asked. Mountains have a lot of formations, and the likes of geomancy arrays formed by nature are very powerful ones, yet contain less mystery therein. The current array before us is, however, very different. It's intentionally arranged to cover a huge region of this mountain range. Average people won't be able to enter it, let alone notice the existence of this geomancy array at all. It seems that this Changbai Mountain has more than meets the eye. Chen Zhizhong couldn't grasp even a single word from Tang Xiu's explanation. However, he didn't go to the bottom of things since his purpose of bringing Tang Xiu to this place was because of the cave he had been unable to open. So, what are we gonna do next, master? We'll bypass this area and head straight to the cave to have a look at it, said Tang Xiu. The Blood Soul Stone is a precious ore and there are so many there. It's very likely that we can find better things inside the cave. However, you're too weak, so you must pay attention to your safety. Will do, master, said Chen Zhizhong. After we've crossed this mountain, we'll find a snowy peak where that cave is located. I brought some people there several days ago, and the mountain pathways in that snowy peak are covered by snow, so it's very difficult to traverse. Tang Xiu just let out a light smile. He grabbed Chen Zhizhong's shoulder and they floated up midair. In just half a minute, they had already crossed the mountain. Tang 28 also led the members he picked up and followed them very quickly. Awesome. Chen Zhizhong lamented in a sigh. However, it was not for Tang Xiu but Tang 28's group of 5. He was already over 40 years old, but his cultivation just reached the early stage of foundation establishment, compared to Tang 28 who had advanced to the mid-stage and the other 4 at the early stage of foundation establishment. Where is it? Tang Xiu stood midair as he asked while letting the snowy wind brush past him. After spending some time to observe the surroundings, Chen Zhizhong pointed to the snow-capped peaks in the distance and said, "Do you see the mountain valley over there, master? The cave is halfway up the valley. Given your flight speed, it'll take only half a minute to get to the cave entrance." Tang Xiu kept releasing his spiritual sense and quickly found the entrance to the grotto after flying toward the direction Chen Zhizhong pointed. Another array? Just as his feet landed on the ground, Tang Xiu's face slightly shifted and he covered the area with his spiritual sense. He easily pulled 2 blood soul stones the size of a small thumb and held them. Although he was an array expert, he didn't rush to study the array here and seriously scoured the nearby area. The blood soul stone was a very rare ore that could be used as a container for a cultivator's soul. Further, it could also be refined to extract the essence of blood contained inside and was also a top ingredient to concoct pills. Aside from those, it was also a good material for refining. After a long while, Tang Xiu returned to the cave looking a bit disappointed. He couldn't find anything else in the nearby area aside from the blood soul stones he found previously. "I'll research the array, then." Tang Xiu then sat cross-legged outside the entrance to the grotto to decipher the sealing array at the entrance. After analyzing it for a short time, he figured out the principle of the array and was confident that he could crack it down. Chapter 1025, A Strange Pocket World. Back in the past, Tang Xiu's attainments in arrays were close to the peak. He could even completely cover up a certain star field in the immortal world with an array with formidable might. His current spiritual sense was only 1/10 that of in his heyday, but cracking an array was just a breeze for him. "Let's head inside." Tang Xiu floated and his finger made a slashing move forward. The air rippled like a net being split and then shattered in the blink of an eye. The newly revealed fine steel door was easily cut open like tofu before crashing to the ground. Eyes full of excitement, Chen Zhizhong's admiration for Tang Xiu reached the peak. Back when he and his men first came to this place, they literally exhausted all the means they could think of and spent great effort to break inside only for naught. But his master achieved it so easily, it was far beyond his imagination. "Strange. There's no spiritual qi here at all," muttered Tang 28 with a look of disbelief behind Tang Xiu after they walked along the cave for dozens of meters. It must be noted that spiritual qi could be found everywhere on Earth, although its concentration was already thin enough in some places that it could be disregarded. But the concentration of spiritual qi in this place was even thinner, completely negligible and couldn't be sensed the deeper they walked. Tang Xiu pondered for a moment and said, "Tang 28, you wait outside the cave with the rest and don't come inside without my order. Keep guarding outside and block anyone who comes here." "Understood." Tang 28's team halted their pace and turned around to the outside of the cave. Afterward, Tang Xiu took Chen Zhizhong deeper into the cave for more than a dozen meters before he faintly heard a roaring voice from deeper inside. The voice was unlike a beast's roar and more like from a human roaring in anger. After going deeper for 100 meters, a bright ray greeted them. "God! How is this possible?" Chen Zhizhong suddenly exclaimed upon seeing the scene in front. He couldn't believe his eyes. Never in his wildest dreams would he ever imagine that such a different world existed inside the massif belly. Although there were no sun and moon, the pocket world had its own blue sky, white clouds, and undulating mountain range. Countless birds and beasts could literally be seen everywhere along with towering ancient trees and various colorful flowers. It simply looked like a fairyland. "Don't fuss over nothing. This is just a pocket world constructed within an array, said Tang Xiu indifferently. But I must admit the array here is more interesting than the one at the entrance. For Qin Zhizhong, who knew nothing about arrays, he naturally couldn't see the abstruseness of this place. He pulled out his dagger and vigilantly glanced at the surroundings, and any slightest disturbance would alert him. This place is so big. So, what are we gonna do here, master? Shall we search around and hunt for treasures? This small world is constructed by an array, and it's way too big for its sake. Pity that the oxygen here is too thin and the spiritual qi is negligible. With such a thin spiritual qi, not even the golden core stage expert can absorb the world energy here, said Tang Xiu, looking a bit regretful. I don't think we can find any precious herbs here even though there are so many flowers and trees. Why, though? Asked Qin Zhizhong, looking confused. Plants can grow here, but why can't medicinal herbs? Aren't they also plants? Medicinal herbs are indeed plants, but for it to be called a medicinal herb is because it needs to absorb the essence of the earth and grow under the nourishment of heaven, and earth's spiritual energy. Only after years of accumulation can it have a strong medicinal efficacy. Using an analogy in this case, even if we grow wild ginseng here, it won't have a medicinal property at all. Do you think it can be regarded as a medicinal herb? Chen Zhizhong instantly understood Tang Xiu's explanation. He then shook his head and forced a smile. It can be called as such then. The reason why ginseng is treated like a treasure is because of the medicinal efficacy it contains. It's no different from a weed without it. That's why I inferred that there may be no medicinal herbs in this small world, said Tang Xiu. If there is any good thing here, it's very likely to be ores. I think that's the case here, master. Chen Zhizhong chimed in hurriedly. Besides, we found some blood soul stones outside the grotto entrance, so I think there must be something better than that ore. How about looking around? Maybe we can find some unexpected surprises here. We'll naturally look around since we're already here, replied Tang Xiu with a smile. The small world itself had a picturesque environment with mountains, rivers, birds, and beasts around. However, with such vibrant life forms in this fairyland, it was bound to have immense danger and horrible fierce beasts around. The roar they just heard was a sign that even Tang Xiu must be cautious despite the negligible spiritual qi of this world. Bluntly speaking, it was the energy consumption that was the deadliest problem for cultivators in this kind of environment, unless they brought with them a massive number of pills. Once they overconsumed their true essence energy and fell into crises, surviving would be very difficult for them. Fortunately, Tang Xiu had a lot of pills in his interspatial rings. Even if the pills didn't have much effect on him, he'd be able to support Qin Zhizhong should he need to take them in an emergency. It seems like I must go to Bangkok again to get some demon stones from the Dark Shaman clan. The number I have to absorb and refine is only enough for a few years. But if I were to be trapped in a small world like this one in the future, it's very likely that I'll fall into great danger then. Walking on the cultivation path is indeed like sailing against the current. Those who can't move forward will only be left behind. The primal chaos force I've accumulated in my body is but only one aspect. I still need to advance in cultivation, which needs me to absorb the star's energy. But just like the rivers that flow into the ocean, all kinds of energy can still be used. I can use spiritual qi as an auxiliary energy, though I still need a massive amount of demonic force to fill it once in a while. After a long while, Tang Xiu and Qin Zhizhong had traversed into the depths of the small world, but they were still unable to figure out how big this small world really was. Further, what made them downright disappointed was that they couldn't find any treasure, though they also didn't encounter any dangers. We can't keep searching like this, Zhizhong. Even spending months to search anything here, I don't think we can search the whole area of this small world given its size. As of now, I'm afraid I must focus on the array of this small world, said Tang Xiu as he stopped with a pensive look on his face. For a moment, Chen Zhizhong looked hesitant, then he said, I don't know anything about arrays, master, so you can research it slowly. I'll just keep searching around. At his words, Tang Xiu took out 2 jade bottles from his interspatial ring and handed it over to him. Nodding, he said, remember, the more beautiful the environment, the more deadly the dangers it hides. Don't be fooled by the scenery of this place and always keep your guard up. Return here immediately if you're in danger. Also, there are 20 pills in these 2 jade bottles that will be helpful to you. Suddenly, he seemed to have recalled something and took out the Tang Sex token he just refined from the interspatial ring and handed it to Chen Zhizhong. The Everlasting Feast Hall is nothing but a normal restaurant now. All its core members have now become Tang Sect members. I'm the one who established this Tang Sect, a sect for cultivators. So, take this Tang Sex token as a proof that you're also a disciple of the Tang Sect. A look of surprise flashed on Chen Zhizhong's face. He knew what the monastic sect meant. The sect as a whole was like a big family in ancient times. For his master, Tang Xiu, to establish the Tang sect meant that he himself was also a cultivator with origin and foundation now. After receiving the Tang sect's token with a solemn face, Chen Zhizhong saw Tang Xiu shake his head. What is it, master? Drop your blood on the token. It will then be fused into your body and the token pattern will appear on your finger. The Tang Sex token is strictly a magic tool with 2 functions. One of which is to prove your identity and the other mainly for protection. It can protect you from a fatal blow once you encounter a hopeless situation. Remember, it won't activate unless you face a desperate situation at the most critical moment of life and death, and you don't have enough time to activate it. With his expression turning serious, Chen Zhizhong firmly nodded. He made a little cut on his finger with his dagger and dropped the blood drop on the Tang Sex token. Suddenly, he noticed a strange connection between his spiritual power with the token in his hand. Whoosh! The token suddenly disappeared and a token pattern appeared on Chen Zhizhong's thumb immediately after. It looked like a tattoo and looked identical to the Tang Sex token. You only need a thought to control the token, continued Tang Xiu. Go now. Don't go too far and lose your way here. As long as I fully comprehend the array of this small world, I can easily detect any treasures inside this world by using this array. Chen Zhizhong nodded and tried to release the token first, before taking it back. After repeating it a few times, only then did he go into the distance excitedly. Tang Xiu took a fast glance around randomly before heading to a flat, large blue stone nearby. After sitting cross-legged on it, he constantly released his perception and quickly touched the invisible array. It's interesting indeed. After perceiving and having a brief comprehension, Tang Xiu realized that this array was very abstruse. Although he could grasp most of the arrays in existence, the small part of this array felt very novel even to him. Something that he had never felt and thought of back in the past. Such a discovery piqued his interest and made him more eager to find out more. He genuinely realized that the more he knew about this array, the more he felt how infinitely wide and profound the array was. In the deep valley was spring water with rising white mist above it. A flock of exotic and peculiar animals resembling sheep and dogs, with a horn just like of the rhinos on their heads were drinking around the spring. Some of them, looking like owls as big as lions, were seen squatting on the rocks, glancing around. They didn't open their mouths, but kept chirping out a cluck, cluck sounds. What is that? Chen Zhizhong, who just came here, suddenly staggered. Luckily, he responded fast and reached out to clutch onto a few meters high boulder before falling to the ground. His face was full of shock as though he saw ghosts in broad daylight.